Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Lynx Golf Club podcast, a conversation show about our wonderful club and the world of golf. I'm Gregory, your host, and as always, I'm joined by my friends Cooper and Chris, but we have a special returning big deal guest coming back, big bucks. Guys, how are y'all doing today?
Good. Yeah. Happy to have Big Bucks No Whammies back on the show. Always a fun time. It's cold, not playing enough golf. That's my only complaint.
Yeah.
But other than that, excited to be chatting with y'all today.
Awesome. Chris Bucks, how you
First guest and first returning guest. You're just racking up accolades here, Bucks.
Yeah, I love it. I'm excited to be back, especially with what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, I'm glad we didn't scare you away.
Yeah.
Y'all have any announcements? Anything you want to kick the show off with? Tell the listeners, tell the viewers what's important right now.
I feel like we should tell everybody about the latest new benefit for all Lynx members. Just launched this week with our new partner, Fubo, Fubo. It's a streaming service that's very sports focused and specifically golf focused as well. So all Lynx members now get a 30-day free trial to go check it out. I was just playing with it earlier this week. It's actually pretty slick. Got my NBA League Pass trial going on the trial. I'm excited about it. Get some Hawks games in.
Great.
But yeah, it's a cool service. So, kind of if you're looking at cord cutting or, have suboptimal cable TV setup or whatever TV setup where you are, they're very good options. So all Lynx members get a sweet deal to try it out. Go check it out in the clubhouse, clubhouse.lynx.golf. And yeah, we're excited to be partnering with these guys.
I can't wait for you to dive into League Pass sickodom. Every year
I've actually
you have
I jumped in before and then jumped out.
Okay.
I worked at the NBA long ago, and so I was doing a bit of that too. And then things wax and wane, but excited to be jumping back in. And yeah, we'll see how far the rabbit hole we go this time.
Great. Pick a League Pass team. You got to pick like some League Pass team that you follow throughout the year. It's exciting. This is like, I've been a League Pass user for a really long time, and every year I pick a League Pass team. And this is kind of one of the first years a League Pass team is exciting and awesome. Like the Thunder is my team this year, and they're probably favorites to win, at least get to the Western Conference Finals. I'm a Warriors fan, and they suck, so I still watch them on League Pass, but it's less exciting. So that's cool.
Yeah. Pro tip for any new dads out there. My go-to move when we had our first child, and I was up all the time in the middle of the night on the East Coast, but I had League Pass and I'd watch the late games because it's like 1 a.m. or whatever. There's nothing. I'm just like sitting there feeding a bottle to a baby. League Pass.
League Pass.
Clutch.
Love it.
They also offer DP World Tour stuff, which is hard to find. So like, if you really want to watch some of that, you're gonna get that action by using.
True. Fubo offers that, not NBA League Pass.
Totally. Great clarification. You're absolutely right. Cooper Bucks, anything y'all want to say before we get started here?
Well, there's been some great content coming out of that DP World Tour right now. They're over in Dubai. Yeah, just a photogenic golf course with that skyline in the background. And, yeah, excited to tune into more of that golfle.
But there's a really fun the people from, is it called St. Andrews?
Not St. Andre.
St. Andre. That the woman from St. Andre was doing like she's styling herself as like an influencer whisperer, and she's teaching all of the real golfers how to be good as influencers. It's a really funny 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Y'all should watch it if you haven't seen it.
Love it.
Great video. We posted it in the Discord if you need help finding it.
Great. Alrighty. Well, let's dive in. So if you're obsessed with golf, you hopefully spend a lot of time thinking about equipment. Maybe you mark your calendar. Right now is a good time for that, for the dates when manufacturers release their new clubs each year. You focus on MOI, speed, forgiveness, aesthetics. Whatever your thing is, you're trying to squeeze out as much performance as possible in a highly technical context. Perhaps you've been fitted by a professional to dial in the right club, the right lie angle, and gapping to optimize for spin rates and distance and everything else, right? Golf's a hard game. So you're using all of modern technology at your disposal to make yourself even better. And these are all great strategies that we highly recommend for improving your game. In fact, we have multiple partners where you can get fitted, you can get lessons, you can buy new equipment, you get discounts on all of that stuff. So don't want to step on all that, still do that. But we also want to explore today what happens if you did the opposite. Today, we're going to talk about vintage golf clubs, why you might want to give them a try, and how you can get started. So, Bucks, Chris Cooper, golf's an impossible game. Like, we hear that all the time. It's really, really hard. Why in the hell would you want to make it harder on yourself and start playing vintage clubs? Why would you want to do that?
I mean, I think for me, it's just pure fun. It's nostalgia. It's thinking like I grew up watching like the Wonderful World of Golf and some of those old matches from the 50s, 60s, and getting a sense of what they had to play with and how good of ball strikers they had to be to game some of those clubs it's just a really cool, fun experience. And when you, I mean, in my opinion, when you play with them, when you play with like a vintage set or something, a lot of your expectations go out the window and you just enjoy the game. So
Yeah, you
Yeah.
don't really have a choice.
That's my experience too. Whether it's because I was looking to build a set or collect a specific club, or we'll get into this a little later, I'm traveling and just want to stop at a used golf store, used sports store, and pick up like the cheapest set possible. It does make for a really enjoyable round to get out and say, all right, I know that I'm not going to, break the course record here with 40-year-old golf clubs. So why don't I just try to hit fun shots, compete, play a fun round? And it takes a lot of that weight off your shoulders. It's almost like a hack to that manage your expectations, line that you see on golf Twitter is just to play with worse equipment.
Yeah, and adapt, right? For me, it's the same reason why I collect vintage vinyl records. I'm a huge music fan, and I just really like the history. I like the smell. I like the look. I like the chase. I like going into a record store and finding something that I've been looking for, or discovering something random. Like, for example, I buy a lot of old country and western records, and I a lot of times haven't even heard of the artist, and I just want to check it out and play it. Then the process of putting the plate onto the record player and listening to it is obviously enhanced by having Sonos speakers, and I can play it in different rooms and whatever. But just the physical experience is really fun, combined with the collecting and the history and everything else. And I'm new to this, but I enjoy the hell out of it for a lot of the reasons Cooper and Bucks just declared, for sure. So, Bucks, do you want to maybe, one of the things that stands out to me, and part of the reason we did this episode is you were, as Cooper and I were telling you that we started to get into vintage golf clubs, you just started sharing just beautiful pictures of vintage golf clubs. So you have a pretty good collection over there. You kind of tell us how you got into it, why you got into it, when you got into it. Walk us through that process.
I think there's, I would say several answers. One is when I was growing up, I'm left-handed. And so as I was growing up, I mean, frankly, unless you could get to like a golf superstore, there wasn't many left-handed options out there. And like my dad, when I first started playing, he's right-handed. I grew up on a military base, not a ton of money. And so it was like, let me find a bunch of hand-me-downs and game whatever set I could find kind of thing. And so like my first set of clubs was persimmon woods, a hodgepodge of irons. I think I had like 3 or 4 old 845 Tommy Armour irons mixed with like 1 Ping and 1 TaylorMade and 1 Ram Golf, like that kind of thing. Yeah, those. And so like that's part of it. Like it's just takes me back. I think the other thing that got me into it more recently, like a true deeper dive, is I went to an event at Sweetens Cove about 6 years ago, and it was hosted by Golf News. who I know the owner of. He lives near me. And so me, him, a couple others went out there. They have like 24 or 30 guys out there. And you go play Sweetens. And then the next loop, it was all vintage or hickories. And that second loop was one of the more fun rounds of golf that I've ever had. And like from a trying to hit certain shots, trying to figure out what clubs do, being blown away by like how good some of the persimmon woods still performed today compared to like the drivers we play, like all of that. And so like that round got me really deep diving into vintage clubs, more so hickories, really, because like everybody there but me, because I was left-handed, were playing full hickory sets. A guy by the name of Tad Moore was at the event. If you know hickory golf or vintage golf, you know Tad Moore. He astounding club maker for
An icon in this space, for sure.
So I contacted Tad after playing and got a set of hickory irons made, and that kind of like got me down this rabbit hole. And then when COVID hit, I really got down the rabbit hole because there was nothing better to do besides crypto and vintage golf. So. But yeah, that's kind of like what got me started down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, kind of to the collecting piece of it. Like it is really satisfying. I can't wait to see you showing off some of what you have, which are just absolutely beautiful pieces. Cooper, you and I a couple of weeks ago now, for late December 2024. Oh yeah. Oh, so that's one of the Tad Moore ones. They're beautiful.
That's one of the Tad Moore ones, yes.
And that is a modern, newly constructed hickory golf club.
Correct.
Right? Kind of built bespokely for your needs.
Correct. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, I think to your point, we probably should draw a distinction for people who are listening and have zero context on this. Is when we talk about vintage golf, we're talking about, older clubs. There's probably two categories, right? There's like the modern builds of hickory stuff done by like Tad Moore and Louisville Golf. And then there's just old clubs, which in themselves are probably best defined by like kind of more steel shafted stuff and hickories, right? So yeah, Louisville Golf is another big player in this space.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's talk about, Cooper. You and I built this set because you were in town. You didn't have your golf clubs. Let's just go to Play It Again Sports. Let's give ourselves a budget and let's build a bag. Talk us through.
Should have been filming that, by the way. That would be pretty sweet content, dude.
Big missed opportunity there, but it is what it is.
We really should have. It was like the first time I got on a plane without my golf clubs in like 3 years. Real talk. For that Christmas. We were at Top Golf. Shout out Top Golf, and we're like, we should go play a real round of golf. We don't have my clubs. Like, well, there's a couple of used golf stores around Nashville we can go and check out. Loved the idea of setting a budget. Thought about filming it, but then just got so engrossed in the process of like, look at this, picking up different clubs and trying to find, any decent fairway wood or driver that met what our needs, right? Of course, you walk in and there's a bucket full of, 10 to 15-year-old drivers, right? Which are probably the most common age group of people replacing and upgrading. And we went around and looked for like, what's the oldest golf club in this store, right? And start there and work our way back up. So, completely disregarding scratches, dents, and dings, just trying to put together originally for me, like a half set, 7 to 10 clubs that would be playable in this paradigm of at least 20 years old, preferably, 20th century golf clubs, right? Sounding old now. I'm a 20th century as well. And, preferentially going back to persimmons, hickories, and basically oldest clubs we could find. So we made out pretty well at the first, was it Play It Again Sports that we went to, Greg?
Yeah, out in West Nashville.
Yeah. We both got a, serviceable set of golf clubs together, driver through putter, which was really great. I picked up a Hogan 3-wood, which is, persimmon head. Really just cool club. Went with an old Titleist driver, which is I think it was a little bit of an advantage over the driver that Greg picked up. What did
How
you
old
end
are
up
we
getting?
talking? Like persimmon or like 975D kind of old?
Yeah, 983E.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah. So still, it's like one of the earlier titanium heads
yeah.
on the Titleist line. What did you get though for your driver, Greg?
I had a Ping Eye 2, which is technically laminate maple, not persimmon, but it it's a wooden head. Pretty small sweet spot. Definitely less carry than yours. But you still, when you hit it further than I did because you hit the ball off the tee further than I do. So I think I'm worse off the tee than you are. So it was mostly an advantage based on skill, but it was fun.
Yeah, and then just some really old Ping Eye irons. I got a putter that has a terrible lie angle called the payroll.
It's terrible.
So you have to literally tilt the shaft forward to putt it to get a square roll off.
What a
It
great
took me about
name too.
3
The
or 4
payroll?
holes to figure that out. Yeah, the payroll, exactly. So,
Is it
but
just
after that,
is it basically a chipper right now?
It looks
it was
like it.
a lot like a chipper. It's a lot like a chipper. So, yeah, I mean, just so much fun to go out there and be like, I know my putter sucks, but like, let's see if I can two putt this hole right and win it to beat you, Greg. It's a really fun way to go out there and play it. And I cheated a little bit with my wedges. I got some older Fokies just to have in Nashville when I want to go visit. My dad can use them and everything. So, but got some used older wedges there. But you got to have spin, right?
Yeah, and we'll talk. I mean, I think when we talk about kind of the what's in the bag and how to build a set, like wedges are, I think, the biggest challenge. Bucks, you might have some insight there, but there are a lot of really bad shoot up wedges that you just like you don't want to play. And so the most expensive and newest club I have was also a Vokey wedge. It was an SM5 that was like $40, and that was almost as much as I paid for the entire Hogan Director iron set. Or Hogan Directors from 1974. So that kind of gives you a sense of the market there, but we can get into old wedge technology a bit. But yeah, I think it was really, really fun, and we'll talk about sort of our current bags. But I'd wanted to do it for a long time. I had seen, Bucks. I'd heard things about your hickory stuff. I will talk about Metalwood, which has a really great series on Scratch called Range Pickers. So I told myself my treat to getting down to a single digit handicap in 24 was to build a vintage set. I did that, and it was like I'd already been looking at these Hogan Directors. They have these like beautiful red paint on the numbers. They look sweet. And we walked in and they had them on the wall, $50. I was like, yeah, those are mine. So Chris, I know, kind of part of this podcast is going to be convincing you to build a play set of vintage clubs. You don't currently game any, but you do have a really special vintage club that you got last year. Can you tell us about that, and then any other sort of hesitation, concerns, worries, excitement? Like, how are you feeling about actually playing vintage clubs?
Yeah, I don't know that I'll take that much convincing, but we'll see how it goes, I guess.
Go.
Because I would definitely qualify myself as a gearhead, like a person who's like into golf equipment and like, checking out all the new models and getting all the specs right and everything like that. And definitely have a lot of nostalgia for older golf clubs, what I was playing growing up. And, I still have my Titleist 975D. You mentioned Bucks, the UST Pro Force 65 shaft in the basement, sitting there collecting dust at the moment. But I think I'm probably like a target demographic for convincing, so I don't think it'll take too much. But I do, yeah. The club you're referencing, actually, it's right back here. It's on the nostalgia front. I got this last year.
Yeah.
This is my Scotty Cameron. It's like the oil can
Really?
finish. It's not the Terillium. So this is it's just carbon steel. And so it's oil can, which like you have to oil it because it's not finished right to keep it from rusting. But this is actually had one of these when I was, growing up playing in middle school and high school. And then
Hell yeah.
kind of to the story you were just describing, I actually picked it up at a Player Against Sports, right? I was a kid, it was golfing, didn't have a ton of money to buy clubs or whatever, and was playing. It was seriously like I was playing some off-brand putter before, obviously with like dream of playing a Scotty Cameron. I walked into some Player Against Sports and found it for like, $20 or whatever it was. And jumped on that at the moment. So I was doing that, kind of golf degeneracy back in the day. So, I'm keen to do it now as well. But I did pick this up recently, mostly for the nostalgia of it, I would say. Just like, so I was planning to make this my little project for the year, restore it a little bit and have a little fun with that. But haven't gone beyond that. Plus the driver I mentioned that's in my basement. I've not built a vintage set. So you guys can do your best to convince me and tell me all the reasons why I should
Do
this
it.
year.
Just do it.
Yeah. I think it's we're gonna see Chris playing with some of these pretty soon. So let's talk about getting started. It can always be overwhelming sometimes to start a new hobby. And I think most of the obsessives sort of jump in and start doing a bunch of research, going to a bunch of forums, finding people who can help you on your journey. I know that's always been the case for me when I dive into something new. So let's start pretty high level. You want to build a vintage set, sort of where do you get started? And I think maybe one of the places to start is like us defining terms, at least for the purposes of this conversation, is like what constitutes a vintage set. I'll throw out my proposal for that is that I think the club needs to have been manufactured at least 20 years before. Like if we were starting a tournament at Spey Bay and we're like, hey guys, come play a vintage golf tournament, I think it has to be at least 20 years old for it to be eligible. Even then, though, you have like a wide range of advantages on people running modern irons. Where does that sit with y'all? Would you adapt it? I think that's going to kind of, the rest of the conversation is going to stem from that definition.
Yeah, for me, I think because I was born in the mid '80s. I started playing when I started playing '97, and so I think for me when I think vintage, like I immediately think like early '90s or before, just because that's what I considered it then. Like even now, like 20 years old, you could still be gaming a pretty darn good set of golf clubs. Like
Yep.
that, yes, are technically vintage, but for me, it's like early '90s before like when metalwoods were just really gaining popularity, like titanium was just becoming a thing. Right. That's what I look at. And even for me, like I have really two kind of buckets. One is like really old clubs, like in good condition, and then just others that are like to Chris' point, like nostalgic. Like it doesn't matter how old they are. Like I have a number of drivers that like I've been collecting recently that I just happen to be gaming in junior golf or college golf that I've let go for one reason or another, and now I want them back, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm gonna second Bucks there. I think 30 years is probably a better threshold. 95. To that end, the Titleist 983 I mentioned before, invalid. It's an 03, right?
That's the whole reason why I'm asking this, because I'm still salty for you.
I mean,
hitting 290-yard drives with that while I was hitting it 230 with my Hickory.
In fairness, you got the only wooden driver in the store. So, I would have happily joined you on that journey, but it was a next best thing
That's just
scenario.
for speed training this winter.
Hey, Chris is showing a lot more improvement than I am at this point. I got to catch up. Yeah. So I really like the 1995 one there. Like, I also like the kind of nostalgia point. We're all similar age group. So like, that like before we really started playing ourselves time period makes a lot of sense to me.
Okay. So a rolling, Chris, do you agree with our definition of a rolling 30 years manufacture date?
That sounds logical.
Okay.
It also reminds me of like the classic car license plates. You guys ever see these? There's the classic car license plates, which I think is defined as 25 years, I want to say.
Okay.
But it just reminds me, like I saw, like a 97 Mustang had a classic car. I was like, wait, what? Yeah, I'm old.
Ford with a classic license plate.
Yeah.
Be great.
Right.
My first car was a 97 Chevy truck, so I would consider that classic. I like it.
Right. It does make me
so
feel old though. But anyways, 25 and 30 years sounds about right.
So then last wrinkle is, Bucks, how do we justify modern manufacturers of vintage clubs? Should we only allow in Hickory shafts from the modern manufacturers, because those would be manufactured now, not 30 years ago, but they are manufacturing clubs that are 50 to 70 years old, right? How do we reconcile that in our definition here?
Well, I think you have I think hickories are in their own category, right?
Okay.
Like, because you can get like I have two, well, now they're like 6 years old or something, but you can get two new sets of hickories that, yes, are technically new, but you're playing with wooden shafts and you're playing with clubs that have specifically been designed to give you the same type of gameplay as in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, whatever. And so I think they're in their own category. Additionally, like, especially for a lefty, like, there's not many options out there for me to go find a left-handed hickory club that is still able to be swung at any sort of speed. And so, like, I think it's one of those things where there's probably some leeway for sure.
Mhm. Okay, so then it has to have been manufactured at least 30 years ago from the date of this fictitious tournament, or it needs to be a hickory shafted modern equivalent.
Yeah.
But like Louisville still makes blades now. Those would not be eligible in this, you think?
I mean, I would, because not with the steel shafts, but if I'm going gaming that club right
Yeah.
there that was made 5 years ago, like,
Yeah.
We'll allow it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I feel good. I just wanted to make sure that we define terms. So then with that in mind, let's talk about how you get into it. So we talked about how we all got into it. What advice can you provide for anyone who's listening to this episode and is like, I don't know, this sounds kind of fun. I'm going to give it a whirl. What advice would you share with those people?
I would say, one, go into it just having fun and exploring. I think it's important not to go into it with like preconceived notions. I think the other thing that a lot of people probably should do is like, if you've been golfing for a long time or been a fan of golf for a long time, like, there's always going to be that that white whale that, like, like, for you, like, you've always wanted that Ben Hogan set, or you've always wanted this, or maybe you have a favorite golf memory that you want to get a club that fits that. And so, like for me, like, one of the first, and I got this in college, but one of the first clubs that I got, because my favorite memory growing up was rewatching the '86 Masters with my dad. We used to rewatch that every single year, and that's when Jack Nicklaus won. He held up his putter, right? And the putter he was using was this McGregor Response. And I don't know if you've ever seen this in person, but like, compared to a normal putter, it's like 3 times the size. It's massive. And so, like, I searched for this putter left-handed for a long time because, like, it just, every time I hold it or look at it, it takes me back there,
Mhm.
right? And so,
Mhm.
like, I would start with like nostalgia or what you've always wanted, right? But outside of that, like, just explore the different avenues there are. Like, go to a yard sale, see what's there, see what looks cool. Go to Facebook Marketplace or eBay or whatever, and just find what you think is awesome. Because what you think is awesome is potentially different than what I think is awesome. And so,
Great advice. Yeah, I think what you said, I think there's like a taste element of, and part of why I like range pickers from Metalwood, which really got me excited about this. You can find it on Scratch. You can go on YouTube and just look at range pickers. What he does is he goes in with a budget into an old store. They typically try to go to local stores. So there's like an episode where they're at Augusta and there's, a bunch of great stores in Augusta. And then he is extremely knowledgeable. I'm forgetting the guy's name who runs Metalwood, but he's extremely knowledgeable in old equipment. And he'll go in and he looks for stuff that's interesting, but sometimes he just buys something that looks fun. But there's this kind of like, there's one angle you can go in and just buy stuff that looks cool and play with it. And then you can always swap it out. Like, I have already broken the 7-iron from my Hogan set and I replaced it with an $8 7-iron off of eBay
Well,
and just swapped it out.
so let me
right?
ask you this though, like,
Mhm.
have you my first job outside of being
Mhm.
a car boy was I did club repair for a golf superstore. Like, have
Mhm.
you gone down that rabbit hole of doing your own club work and reshafting, regripping?
I'm gonna need your help doing that because I want to regrip everything for sure. So we're gonna talk about that in the playset, but I want your help getting into that because I don't like my grips. Not how they feel necessarily. I don't really care. I just don't like the way they look. They're
Okay.
all mismatched right now. So I want to like get new for rules or however you pronounce that word.
Fair.
I also want to get like really cool grips. So yeah, we're gonna go down that rabbit hole for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is one tip I will say for anybody that owns a lot of clubs or likes to swap clubs a lot, constantly changes clubs, trades clubs, like
Yeah.
reshafting a golf club, regripping a golf club is cake.
Yeah.
As long as you got the equipment, which isn't expensive, it is so easy.
Sure. This is reason number 78 why I need to move to the suburbs, get a garage, all my
Yeah.
tools, have a vise,
Yep.
yeah, wait for my fiance to hear this one.
For sure.
Yep.
So, obviously we're not going to have to convince Chris, but we're giving, Chris is a stand-in for the listener and the viewer here. So what other advice can we give him about how to get started? Or, Chris, what questions do you have? What, worries do you have? A lot of people bring up, can I even play with these? Like, how do we go in that direction to make sure Chris feels confident that he can get started on this journey?
Yeah, where would you guys go to figure out which clubs you want to get, I guess? Or like you could go the Play It Again Sports route and just see what's there and make a pick, but there's a whole internet out there worth of clubs that you could get. So like I'm sure some people have like me like a nostalgic tie to something they played in the past, but other than that, like how would you guys figure out what is even out there and what's the coolest or most fun thing to buy among all those things?
I'll put a plug in. Golf WRX has a really good forum for classic golf and golfers. So we'll put that in the show notes. There's a whole mess of people who talk just about what, like, for example, when I was thinking about my driver that I wanted to replace my current driver with, I definitely went on that. It was just, there was a forum that was just, what's your favorite driver? And I just read as much as possible about every type of driver people were talking about. And same thing goes with iron sets. So there's tons of information that if you're willing to look for it, it's out there. So just Googling things like vintage golf clubs or irons from the 70s or whatever, you're going to see people advocating and arguing for what they like. And then my next step is usually just going to eBay to just see what it looks like and see kind of what the cost is. So, the way that I see this is I'm very much a build set, play set kind of person, not a collector. I don't want to have a bunch of clubs 'cause I don't have enough room. So I'll always have 14 clubs. So if I'm buying a new club, I'm replacing an old club and getting rid of it. So I just kind of have a list of all the clubs and then kind of a sub list of ones that I might want. Like I'm going to replace my putter at some point. I have like 2 or 3 ideas that I've seen in these forums or I've seen on Instagram or I've seen on Range Pickers that I'm curious about to do research on to see like, okay, is it willing to throw $80 at this to go play with it, knowing that I could sell it later on?
Yeah, I'd highly recommend what Greg said. Go to eBay. eBay's, I mean, you could spend days and days and days on eBay and just search vintage clubs and thousands upon thousands will pop up. That Facebook Marketplace is fantastic. There's so many people on there that are in the same world and like are happy to trade, happy to barter, happy to sell, whatever it is. There's just so many options. My favorite is just randomly going to like a thrift store or a garage sale or something and seeing what somebody's had in their actual garage for 35 years and they're getting rid of it for $1 a club. Like that's to me the coolest way because like I'll go to Play It Again. We got one near me, but like they are Play It Again overprices everything. And it just takes away some of that fun. Whereas like if I go to a garage sale and I find a single iron or a single wedge for $1, $2, whatever, like that's just super cool to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm on that same page. Of course, the internet's out there and you can kind of go and I love the advice of finding a moment in history, right? There's that Arnold Palmer at the 66 Masters or whatever, and like I'd love to have that exact club, do that whole aesthetic, like dress up like that for Halloween, do the whole thing. But I think there's something to me. I love instant gratification as well. Going to the store, picking something up, feeling it, like just whatever's available that day, and finding it. I hear you on Play It Again Sports. There's a Second Swing near here, which is like specifically old golf clubs, which I'm going to check out. But yeah, garage sales, Goodwill, I also hear has, even better deals than Play It Again or Second Swing, because people donating stuff, right? Thrift shops will do that. So I've got my eye out. I'm gonna be bouncing around, picking up stuff, and holding it in my hands, being like, how's this kind of feel? And completing the set that I've started with Greg in Nashville. I think I'm gonna do it all IRL, no internet orders, I think is my kind of plan for it. Just because that's going to be a fun way to touch and feel everything before I buy it.
Yeah. Go vintage with both your clubs and your purchasing.
There you go. I spend enough time online.
Right now.
Yes.
Yeah, I think my advice is, and this is similar. I used to collect 60s baseball cards, and I very much made the stance that you just did, Cooper. It was like I didn't have enough money to buy good versions of everything. I'm just going to buy the most chewed up version I can find. And I'm not going to buy it until I can find the worst version I've ever seen of this card. Because, obviously if you're chasing 9 and 10 mints, like you're going to pay a lot of money and they're hard to find, right? So like my Mickey Mantle from that 1960 top set looks like somebody chewed on it, fed it to their dog, stepped on it, ironed it, and then put it in a container. And I love it. But I knew what I had to buy. Like there is a list of cards that make a complete set, and my goal was to make a complete set of bad looking cards. So there's that way of like, Chris, if you have a list of the clubs that you really want, you hone that in, you're either going to have two things happen. One is you're going to wait to find your white whale or whatever Buck said earlier. Like you're going to happen upon it in a store. You're going to find someone online who maybe has one. And part of the fun is the collecting journey of like, oh man, once I finally got it, it's great. Or if you're less patient, you can just go on eBay and buy each of those individual clubs and like complete your set as fast as possible. And there's probably going to be two types of people, neither of them are wrong, who want to approach the building of the play set in those two different ways.
I think the other thing is there's a chance, and you got to be really clear about this, is are you going to game all of these clubs?
Mm-hmm.
Like, because I've definitely bought a couple sets that I planned on gaming, and like I got them and they're just like too nice.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks so good that I can't fathom hitting them.
Yeah.
So I have a couple basically collector sets that look awesome. Like my favorite is this Jack Nicklaus is my favorite golfer of all time. And so like I found this vintage Jack Nicklaus set with like the full matching grips, but like literally never been hit before, golden bears.
Beautiful.
Yeah, they're amazing. And like I got them with the intent to go play. And then I was like, all right, well, they're going to be on my wall forever now. And so I got another set. And so you just got to be clear with, are you going to game them, or do you want to have a couple collector sets or even investments? Like some of the stuff is pretty pricey.
Yeah, I think it's a good point so on the other side of that, as a person who only wants to collect things that I'll play with, you have to just be okay with the fact that they're going to break. Right. This is kind of more famous in the Hickory community of like reshafting, to your point earlier, Bucks. But yeah. I've already broke my 7-iron, and none of them I feel too precious with. Like I'm not Bobby Jones with Calamity Jane and like, some little kid stealing it in New York and like the entire world finding it. I don't feel a personal connection right now to any of these individual clubs. And I think if I did develop one, I would probably not play with it because the risk is there to break it. The good news is they're pretty cheap to replace. Like unless you're buying a, $500 Scotty Cameron putter, then, if you're staying in a lower market than that, you're going to end up spending a lot less money than you would if you were replacing a modern set of clubs, because there's just a bunch of them out there in secondhand stores.
For sure.
Chris, what else is in your head about, this getting started? We talked about kind of where to buy them, how to approach the building. What else? Let's just assume you're still on the fence. What gets you onto our side here?
Half the fun's like the research. So I feel like that's the biggest one, right? Like, knowing where to go and figure out what you want. I feel like the other big question I might have, you already kind of touched on, is what kind of vintage set are you going to buy? Are you going like full on hickories? Or are you going, from which time frame or what have you? Which I don't know if we would need to rehash that, but I feel like that's the other thing. If you are starting from scratch, you'd have to figure out, right? Like, am
Yep.
I gonna get like Buck said, the one I'm gonna play or gonna collect, or do I want the full on, hickory experience, or am I just kind of going, back 30 years in technology and doing it that way? I don't know if any of y'all have strong views on that, but it feels like that's a big one.
If you're going to do this, at the very least, I would highly recommend at least getting persimmon woods.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's a clear starting point. And then if you can find a hickory club or two just to mess around with, awesome. But I think persimmon woods is like the one caveat, right? To like truly
Like the biggest break in
Yeah.
technology, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yep.
So
I agree with that. At least, again, everyone comes at this from a different sense, but that is how I will build my set. I will always have, because I really like, when I was a kid, I had the Heavenwood, Callaway, Big Bertha stuff. I love those clubs. Like we talked about nostalgia. And so I definitely am like, man, I would love to have those clubs, but like it doesn't, the 7-wood doesn't make sense in my set right now.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah.
a metal wood. But so there is that. But I think my constraint will be always to have wooden heads, either persimmon or laminate maple or whatever the manufacturer used.
Yeah, there
Beautiful.
it is.
Yeah,
Wow.
I think my 3-wood, I'm going to go the Titleist direction for those just because they look great.
They're very clean,
very nice
for sure.
Very nice golf club. The other thing I would say to convince our hypothetical Chris here is I played your home course in Nashville, and the first time I went out with you, I probably shot like, I don't know, like a 94, right? But did not play well. It was with my own clubs. And then we went and picked up a $150 set of used, very old, very bad shape golf clubs, and we left the scorecard in the golf cart. I may have broken 80. I legitimately, like, except for one bad, double at the beginning of the back nine, we both hit it in the water with our unknown distances. Yeah, man, I played
Why
really
do you
well.
think that is though, Coop? Like, is it your expectations are gone? You're just worried about hitting it?
It's
Like-
all between the ears, man. That's really the fact of the matter. And, I know our equipment partners are going to hate me for saying this, but like, you can play really well if you get out of your own way. Is something that I discovered through this process, right? Of just like getting some junk clubs, you go out and competing with a friend, right? And
Yeah, you won
that,
7 and 5. No
Yeah,
shit. Like
I
you
kicked your ass.
absolutely beat me.
Yeah, and that was really fun. And just the experiment, like golf for me is a lot about exploration, finding new locations and properties and angles and ways to play a hole. And this equipment side is just another area of the game to explore, and
Mhm.
it gets me out of my own head and just allows me to focus on ball striking and playing the game
Yeah.
that we love. So
It's a completely different. I mean, as someone who plays that golf course, like 90% of my rounds are at that course, right? It's my home club. Playing with vintage clubs, it's a completely different golf course. I feel like I'm getting 2 for 1. It's like having a reversible course because every shot is completely different. I'm different off the tee, obviously, on every hole because the distance is different. So now I have a different approach shot. And even on shorter approach shots, the spin is completely different. So I have to think about where I actually want to be. I know our friend Lou would say, angles are stupid. But like I do have to think about like what happens if this ball spins a quarter of what I think it's going to be. Like I have no idea what it's going to do, right? Because I'm so used to my clubs. But like I'm hitting a lot more bump and runs. I'm running stuff like more up to the green. There's a lot of hazards to get around. Like, it's a completely different golf course, and that's fun. It's like playing different tees, right? Like part of the thing I like about playing different tees is you're playing basically a different golf course, and the shots are completely different. And so yeah, to echo Cooper's sentiment, number one is he played super well, and it was a ball striking clinic, and it's like the most centered I've seen him on a golf course. But it's the most fun I've ever had getting my ass kicked for sure on a golf course because I was having a good time too.
I think what you just brought up though is super important, and one of the reasons why it is pretty fun. I mean, and I can only speak for myself, but I feel like the entire group here, most golfers are in the same boat. Like when I see a golf course today, unless there's some obvious trouble like water or gorse or something like that I cannot hit it in, I am teeing it up and hitting it as far as humanly possible. And then I know wherever I am, as long as I can hit it, my wedge is going to stop reasonably fast, right?
Mhm.
When you're playing the vintage sets or even the hickories that I play, like at from the first shot to the last shot, I have to think about what I'm actually doing because the lie you have does matter. The angles do matter. And like by far the biggest difference when you're playing vintage or hickory is the lack of spin around the greens.
Yep.
Like I can be anywhere around a green right now with my Mac Daddy wedge or a ping wedge and know that I can get up and down, hit a flop shot, do whatever. You cannot do that with a lot of the vintage clubs. And so you have to play the angles and you have to look at like, I cannot short side myself. And so it's just a whole different experience in like, you have to think about it. And, when you are used to like just banging it everywhere, like that's just a really fun environment.
Yeah,
That-
for sure.
That reminds me of one more question. Are you guys playing modern balls when you play? Or are you also going vintage on the balls you're using?
Great question, and it's a question that comes up in the forums all the time. I'll answer quickly. Yes, I'm just playing modern balls mostly because what people will say on the forums is that like the older balls were just like rocks anyway, and so the modern balls are actually softer for the most part, and you should be okay. Is it a different experience in playing with the Bellotto or like the ball that was designed when the manufacturer had in mind that club? Yeah, it's different, but I just play modern clubs or balls because it's easier.
For the record, I did pick up a dozen balls at Second Swing, so they were secondhand balls, but of a modern variety.
And
If
still
you are
175.
in the market for ancient golf balls, we have a few at Spey Bay, so come out and visit. We can hook you up. No guarantee
5
that you'll
pounds a bag.
take
Or
them
whatever.
home with you. They'll probably end up back in the gorse where they belong. But it's a great location for vintage golf balls.
Yeah. The ball selection is like a very hot topic in the hickory world and probably one of the most important like aspects of choosing what you're going to play. Cause most of the modern balls, like, yeah, they're pretty soft. They spin quite a bit, but like, especially off the tee, they don't spin nearly as much as you need it to. And so they kind of like knuckle and fall out of the air.
Yeah.
And so like, Wilson makes a Tour Professional that's like a 70 compression ball that spins a lot more than a typical tour ball, but it's perfect for hickory clubs or persimmon woods and that kind of thing. And so like, if I am playing like the hickories, I'll play like a Wilson Tour Professional or Tour 100 or something like that. That's a very low compression, super soft ball to try to, again, not just off the tee, but around the greens, get a little bit more spin for sure.
It's a good tip.
Cool. Well, let's wrap things up here by talking through kind of what are we gaming right now. The way to kind of keep this efficient, I would say, what's in your gamer bag right now, and what's, let's say, 2 clubs you'd want to swap out that you don't currently have, right? So to kind of get at here's the current set you're playing with, and then here's your desire to collect more. Chris, I'll let you go last, but I want to kind of hear from you. If you were building a set right now, what would your list be for that set? So anyone can start. What's in the bag right now, and what are 2 clubs you want to swap out?
Yeah.
I'll go first real quick.
Go ahead, Bucks.
Yeah. So I have 2. So every spring when winter breaks and I can actually play golf, I typically play like a full month with hickories. You get into like ball striking mode and not have no expectations, and you just are worried about hitting it consistently. And so I am gaming these Louisville persimmons or hickories, and so pretty basic hickory woods there. And then I do have these Louisville irons, and so I have 2 iron, which is like their mid iron they call, down to like mashies and
It
nibble
looks
blades.
nasty.
Mashies, that thing is awesome. like stingers all day. But I'll play that set. I would say the one piece, and then I guess I would be remiss without showing the aim right putter that I have, old Ted Ray special. So I did find that at like a Goodwill. But I'll play that set. The one thing that I wish like I could have more control over in terms of like needing another club is you don't have a lot of wedge options. Like you just have your niblick or your one wedge, and it's typically like a 50-degree or 52-degree ish kind of club. Like I wish that I could find like a 58 or 60-degree old timey wedge or hickory wedge that would go a long way. Especially with like the modern courses, because back in the day, like your stimp is like a 4. Like you're running super slow greens that stop. Like the greens that we play can run pretty quick, and so having more loft, more spin is like a necessity.
Yeah, I was thinking about that watching some old golf video, and it's like maybe when we do have this tournament one day at Spey Bay or our U.S. course, we let the greens grow out for a couple of days. And we don't roll them. See, play it the way they did back then. I think the necessity we discussed it is my driver. I got to replace, that Titleist to be compliant with our age range.
Yep.
So
you're gonna get sanctioned if you don't. So
right, I'm just here to not get fined. Mm-hmm. Gotta find a driver that works in that. I may do a little bit of research just to know when I walk into Second Swing or Goodwill, like what I'm, looking for or trying to find, but I'm going to go offline for it. Yeah, I don't think it's compliant, but I did want to point out, I've got Titleist announced their new Vokey oil can ones today, the copper ones. This is my 64-degree treble wedge, beryllium.
64-degree?
The 64-degree, regripped, but it's great if you find yourself in one of those pot bunkers. And then I guess the other one I'd want to replace would be the payroll putter, or chipper putter combo, whatever it is. I'm gonna keep my eye out for something vintage and cool. Maybe talk to our friend Alfie over in Scotland about some advice on what to pick up. He's the biggest putter connoisseur I've ever seen. Yeah. The
I'm kind of waiting on a putter until I talk to Alfie for sure.
Yeah, I think that might be the way to go forward here for that. But yeah, just pick up something to maybe make it a little bit more competitive off the tee, Greg.
Maybe I'll just get longer with my Hero Hanma. So my current gamer, what I have been using, I found Ping i2s. Again, they're laminate maple. They're just kind of what they had. I do like them. It's weird because they're definitely different years, I think, and they're all under the Ping i2 brand, but I think they were different updates because my driver is smaller, substantially, yeah, exactly, is smaller than the 3 and the 5 wood. And the 3 and the 5 would look really weird. So I'm pretty excited to get out of the Ping i2s, honestly. My wife did buy me for my birthday Hero Hanma. Because Bucks is on here, I'm going to be precise with exactly what this model is. A Hero Hanma Persimmon LB280 driver. It does have a titanium carbon shaft, which is part of why I asked the question at the beginning, because it feels weird to have a non-steel shaft on a Persimmon driver. But it's older than 30 years old, so we're well within that. I'm very excited to play that. And then I have 3 through technically what's called the equalizer, which I think is like probably 48, 49 degrees or so bucks. But my Hogan 1974 directors, I love those. I think the only reason I would change is if I find ones in better condition, because mine, they are a little bit chewed up, but they're fine enough for now.
Do you know what year they are?
I don't know what year. I mean, they came out in 74. I looked online. It seems like they manufactured them through 79, so it could be anywhere between 74 and 79, but I'm not sure.
There's a period there of Hogan irons that were all stamped in Japan.
Okay.
The same factories they do, like the Miuras and other things. Like, even though they're Ben Hogan, they're like elite.
Yeah, like Hattori Hanzo from Kill Bill. I love that because I really love Japanese irons. And then I have, like I said, I'll probably swap out at some point the wedges to kind of Buck's point earlier. I have a SM5, which I think came out like 10 years ago or so. So that's not compliant. I have an older Cleveland that I have absolutely no idea. So it was a 54 and a 60. So I need to update wedges, and we'll come up with that plan at some point. My putter right now is a Ping Pal 2. I already had it actually because I was moving from a lab to more of a blade putter, just mostly because of the head cover. I've since gone back to the lab in my game modern set. I really have my eyes.
Do you notice much? Like, do you notice a significant difference though in how you putt between the modern lab and the Ping Pal?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, part of that. I mean, I have a Ping. I think it's a PLD H2. I think is the one that Fee and I used a couple years ago. There's a huge difference in that and the PAL 2. Like, just for me, the feel, it's softer. I don't like putting with the Ping, and so my 2 will be new driver, which I already have on the way, and then I really like the Cameron. Before he went into Titleist, he was with Mizuno, or at least making putters for Mizuno, and there's one called the Reason, the M200. I really like the way that one looks. So, but now that I know that I can get one within, I think I'm going to go with Cameron just because I think they're cool looking. But whether it's a Titleist Cameron, a Mizuno Cameron, or something else in the middle that he's done, maybe there's also some great Bettinardi stuff out there from that time period. So yeah, that's my wish list. Chris, let's give us our list. What are you going out there and getting? You already got the putter figured out.
Yeah, although the putter, I was just looking it up, I think these are from like 97, 98. So I don't know that it's compliant. Yeah, so I'll
have to wait a couple years.
You'll have to find an older.
Yeah. I'll put it on the shelf for 2028 when I can start using it. But I think, I mean, putter wise, and you were talking about the Ping ones, I would get a similar head shape or like the Ping Answer, just like the classic, blade putter setup, which I used at some point too. So there's like the nostalgia value there as well. So I'd probably take that for the putter. Honestly, I don't know. Oh, there we go.
Favorite of all time.
Love
Bullseye.
The double, the double-sided. But I honestly don't know if I know enough about persimmon woods to like, or older woods to like make an educated pick right at this moment. I take one of the ones that Buck showed on the screen here and in our titles. So, but I don't know enough to pick.
I think the big thing, with even today's clubs, is making if you can find it, like trying to find a stiff shaft. If you can find it, like that does make a big difference.
That makes sense. But then for the irons, just going again on my kind of like nostalgia trip, it would either be the Ping I2s, which I also like played when I was young. Maybe get one of the like beryllium copper, beryllium nickel. They did all those weird different metals at some point in the past. That would be fun. Or like you were saying, the Hogan irons bucks that were stamped in Japan. Like I do remember, I recall growing up, like guys playing Hogan irons, and they had the forged, they had the blades and the cavity backs, and then they were still. I mean, I feel like those are still pretty popular. Late 90s, early 2000s. It was like kind of a gamers club. But so like a slightly older version of those, I have a little bit of sentimental attachment to, and also they look pretty cool. So I'd go with those for the irons.
All right. Well, we're going to hold you, much like our 2025 goals, we're going to hold you accountable, getting this set put together. And then we're all going to play around. Hopefully, we can get something going at Spey, full-on vintage tournament, something in the U.S. Like, I'm really excited about this. I think this is something that we'll all share for forever, but also hopefully, some other Links members who want to join us. Like, come on, let's play. Let's play with some vintage golf. I'm fired up about it. I don't know if I'll ever play with a modern golf club again. I love it. It's so much fun. So thanks everybody for taking the time today to really, learn about this and sort of dive in. Chris, thanks for standing in for the person who's needing to get into this. So that does it for today's episode. Again, thank you very much for taking the time to listen. Thank you for taking the time to watch it. please do share feedback, either good or bad. Good or bad is always, always helpful. Is this the kind of content you want to see? Do you want to see stuff that's more like announcement driven or related to membership? Do you want more conversations like this? Do you want different guests? Who do you want those guests to be? Obviously, everyone will want to bring big bucks back, but who else do you want us to bring on? So do you have ideas for topics? Whatever you got, let us know. You can do that in Discord, or you can do that in the YouTube comments below. And again, you can find this anywhere you find your podcasts and also on YouTube. So please give us a subscribe, give us a notification bell ding so you can be notified when these go live. And we will be very excited to talk to you there. And we're excited to keep going with this. So Cooper, Chris, Bucks, anything else y'all want to share before we wrap up or plug? Otherwise, we'll say goodbye to the fine people.
Yeah, let's continue this conversation. If you have your collector like Bucks, or you're getting into this, you want some advice, you want to chat, pop into the Discord. We have a gear chat channel where we're always discussing modern clubs, new sets, and as well as these vintage kind of collector's editions. So hop in there, get set up on Clubhouse, stay up to date on all the latest by joining the Links newsletter. And we look forward to seeing you on the next call and in the chats in the meantime.
Absolutely. Cool. Well, thanks everybody. Appreciate it. Thanks Cooper, Chris, Bucks for taking the time today, and had a great time. And I can't wait to play with y'all soon.
All right. Thanks, brothers.
Everybody.
I look forward to a night of eBay. See y'all.
Yes. Great.